He was born and raised in Phoenix, a stellar high school athlete who made it to the NFL and played for 4 teams. And now Devon Kennard is back home where he's always wanted to be. But now he's taken on a new career in real estate. I caught up with him at his home to talk about life after football, his new ventures, and how he wants to inspire others to hustle.
I went to USC for college and got my undergrad and master's degree while I was there. So I'm one of the few guys who entered the NFL already with their master's degree. So that was kind of like a big deal that I always wanted to concentrate coming out of college. And once I got in the NFL, I immediately started investing in real estate. So I spent a lot of time in my off season learning about that. And I took finances very serious because, it was a time where a documentary called Broke came out, and it was about NFL and professional athletes going broke. And I didn't want to be another statistic. So I was really intentional about figuring out what are the best investment avenues, what makes sense for me. And, I felt like over the years, I just started to compound my knowledge and then my experience because I was doing it in real time. And, that fast forward to today.
Where did this interest in finance begin?
I would say it started even in high school, just because having a father who was a professional athlete. My dad played 13 years in the NFL, won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. I got to see my dad a lot post his NFL career, to where I realized that even if I have a career just like him, 13 years, hopefully win a Super Bowl, there's so much life on the back end of that. So it's like, man, finances, what I do with the money that I make, if I make it to the NFL, is really important, because I don't want to have a good life for a couple of years and then be struggling the rest of my life. How do I make as much money while I'm in the NFL as I can, and then let that bleed over? So that mindset kind of started in high school, and in college, I faced a lot of adversity and went through time periods where injuries, coaching changes, to where, the top 5 recruit in high school, and all of a sudden I'm in college and it doesn't look like I'm going to make it to the NFL. And that made me ask myself a question, like, do I want to be successful because of football, or do I want to be successful, period? And my decision was like, I want to figure out finances regardless. And that really helped me dive in and start to network and figure out different avenues that was going to really impact my life off the field.
And I bet during your NFL career, you saw a lot of athletes spend a lot of money because they were making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's the huge challenge. And people kind of are hard on athletes at times because of that, but they lose sight of the fact that, can you imagine you're 21 years old, and just because you're really good at something doesn't mean you know how to handle the money that comes along with it. So 21 years old and you're throwing millions of dollars, and you come from a background where no one taught you about finances, and you have all these things that you want to do or things that you want to have, and all of a sudden you have the money to have it. It's easy to start to spend it. So my big message to people in those positions isn't to not ever buy those things and live the life you want, but how you do it and when you do it matters. And I feel like I was a good example of that. When I got in the NFL, I brought my high school car to the NFL. I drove a 2005 Kia Sorento for the first 2 years I was in the NFL. And that was a challenging thing, in the sense of, like, you're seeing guys with Rolls Royces, Mercedes, all these different cars. And it's not that I didn't have a desire to have some of those cars one day, but I believed I needed to take the money I was making, invest it, and do something wise with it. And then down the line, hopefully the growth happens, and now I can buy those things. So
that discipline must have been so hard, though.
Yeah, I mean, it can be hard, but you got to really understand and embrace delayed gratification. And I think football taught me that a lot, because there was a lot of nights where, instead of going out and hanging out with my friends, I was training extra hard, and it didn't look like it was benefiting me much in the moment. But now I look back, and it's like those decisions really impacted my career and the longevity that I was able to have playing in the NFL for 9 years. So the same thing happens with your finances. It's like everybody's buying those things up front, and it doesn't feel great not having those things right away, but down the line I'm going to get to the point where I can, and it's going to be much more rewarding then. So I encourage people to think about delayed gratification and the impact it could have on your life.
So you started getting into buying one property and then buying another. How did that come about?
The first property I ever bought, I chose Beach Grove, Indiana, and people was like, why didn't you buy in Arizona? That's where you're from. But to be honest, I'm very risk averse, and I was scared that I didn't know what I was doing. So I chose a market that was cheap. So in Arizona, homes are $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 even back then in 2014, 2015. But my first property was $89,000, and I bought it with a investor that helped me. So he put $12,000 in, I put $12,000 in. It's like, I don't want to lose $12,000, but it's not going to completely ruin my life if I do so. So that was my mindset. And I encourage people to do that. Like, people think you got to go and hit a home run right away and buy a very expensive property and invest that way. And I'm like, it's okay to start small and figure out a strategy that works for you, works with your risk tolerance, gain the knowledge, and build up from there. And, most recently I bought a sixplex, and I wouldn't have bought that 10 years ago, but now I've stacked one property at a time and grown a portfolio. And now I feel comfortable taking over a sixplex that needs a big renovation. But it's like that first property was the domino effect to get me to my most recent property.
Wow. So now fast forward, where are you at now?
So retired in 2023 at the beginning of the year. So almost 2 years out of the NFL, and I'm investing full time. So my days is balanced between family time. I try to be really present with my two girls, and then growing my business, growing my investment portfolio. And I'm very passionate. You can follow me online about teaching about finances, teaching about real estate. And I say, I'm a financial expert, but I found real estate to be my avenue that I'm really passionate about, because all the benefits of investing in real estate. There's tax benefits, it accounts for appreciation, you get cash flow, so it hits a lot of different buckets, and I think it's a great investment vehicle. So I've kind of really niched down as that being my focus and my world of expertise.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years, I plan on at least doubling my real estate portfolio currently. So growing that a lot, being a predominant investor here locally, so being really well known. My goal is kind of to be more known for business and investing in real estate than I was for football. And I'm a big person on, like, what I'm doing currently is what matters most. I don't want to be one of those has-been athletes. There's so many guys who talks about what they used to do, and I want that to just be kind of a thing I brush over, like, oh, played 9 years in the NFL, had a great career, and transitioned into real estate. So I hope 10 years from now I'm really known for investing here locally and growing a true business here.
I know you said your dad was part of the reason why you got into this, but what would you attribute your business acumen to?
I would actually say a whole lot of podcasts, books, and mentors. Like, I'm big on networking. I think there's so much you can take from other people, and people are afraid to reach out. And I found if you educate yourself and show that you're serious, and then you reach out and ask people, I call them level 2 questions. Like, so many people will hit you up and be like, will you grab a cup of coffee with me? And it's like, that's too broad. People are busy. But if you've read up on them, or you know that they're in something specific and you're interested in that, and you're asking targeted questions, and I'd love to sit down and meet with you about buying single family homes in the Arizona or in the Tempe market. That's a much more better ask, and those are the kind of asks that I give, and it's allowed me to network with really good people who've streamlined this process for me, and I've been able to learn from. And that's kind of, I would say, that's my superpower. If I have one, it's my ability to network. And I feel like if you do that, what would take you 10 years on your own, you could condense down into a year or two. And I'm kind of experiencing that in real time right now.
What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of football being what I did, but not who I am. And it's a challenge, and I can't say that was the case for me my entire career, because there was at points in time where it's like I felt like football was who I was, and football will let you down eventually. You're not going to be able to play forever. Injuries happen. So as much as you love the game's not going to always love you back. And I was really proud of the fact that I got to the point where it's like, football is what I do, and I love the game, and I could talk ball all day with anyone, but it's not who I am. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an investor, I'm a friend, and finding identity outside of the game is really important to me. And I hope I can help other guys do the same, because it's a huge challenge when you do something your whole life since you're 6, 7 years old, and all of a sudden it's just gone. You know, the transition, even for me, this last year and a half has been hard, and I have things together with, you know, good family and investing and stuff, but being out of the locker room, not having the same camaraderie you had one day, that's a challenge. And I want to help guys with that transition by, you know, really separating themselves from the game and realizing, like, I'm my own person and football's what I do, but it's not who I am. When it comes to college athletics, the game is changing a ton right now to where kids are, you know, 17, 18 years old and they're getting thrown six figures. Yeah. And one of the first lessons I tell them that's more like technical is like, make sure you're putting at least 30 to 50% of that away, because a big mistake they make is when you're making marketing money from different endorsements, that's not taxed right away. So you make $100,000 and you go and buy, you know, a car and you buy a piece of jewelry and all of a sudden it's IRS time and they're asking for 30 grand and you spent it. You know, you're 18 years old and now you're in a really bad position. So on the technical side, the first thing I say is like, you make 100 grand, put 30 to 50 of that away, because you got to assume that it's not yours. And if you end up not having to pay that much, great, but assume that much is gone. So that's the first thing. But just mindset wise, a huge thing that I talk to these college kids, and I've been able to speak at ASU before, and I go to USC and speak. And one thing I tell them is like, save that money. You know, like I was in college living off of a few $100s. I used my stipend check to like pay for my apartment and lived off a few $100. You don't have to live like an NFL player while you're in college. Save that money, because you don't know what's going to happen with the NFL. Maybe you make it, maybe you don't. But I would love to be in a position where I'm graduating from college, hopefully playing in the NFL, but I don't know. But I have $200,000 saved up. That's a good jump start to your life if football doesn't work out. And I don't think enough of these kids are having that perspective, because they're bullish on like, oh, I'm going to play 3 or 4 years in college and I'm going to make $1 million while I'm in college and I'm going to go to the NFL. And that's just the reality is that's not the case for everybody. But now you can give yourself a great head start by saving a lot of that money while you're in college. You're a college student. Don't have the mindset of you got to live like an NFL player while you're in college. And I really kind of try to take that home with the younger kids.
Why'd you decide to write the book?
My main reason, to be fully transparent, is like there was very few books written by African Americans and even fewer written by athletes in the financial space. So where I was like, just being an African American, that alone, there's like, I've read a ton of finance books and there's not many from African Americans, and then none that I can think of from athletes. So I was like, man, like I can reach, I go out my whole professional career. I was Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee when I was with the Detroit Lions. And I would go out to different communities within Detroit, New York, and Arizona when I played and talk to the youth. And I always had a unique perspective, because I wasn't just talking to them about video games. I'm asking them how their grades are going. What interest do you have outside of just sports? Because I want kids to realize athletics are incredible, but there's so many ways you can find success today outside of playing sports. And that message is given a lot, but not from athletes. So who it's coming from really matters. You know, if a 50-year-old banker comes into a classroom and is telling that to middle schoolers, that's a lot different than a professional athlete saying football's great, work hard, try to become a professional athlete. This life is awesome, but hey, there's a lot more ways you can find success than just sports. And I felt like that resonated, and I think that seeing how much that resonated with kids, I think that led me to like wanting to write both of my books, because I'm like, wow, like I can send a different message than most athletes are sending, and it really hits home to the youth.